Hi, my name's Phil. I like talking about politics, and in this video I'd like to discuss the concept of post-Brexit trade talks taking place in complete secrecy and how it should concern us deeply. But first, if you'd like to be notified of daily news and politics, then please subscribe to the channel and click the bell notification icon. So, when it comes to post-Brexit trade deals, we were, if memory recalls, supposed to have several completed already. When it was obvious that this was not going to be the case, various Brexiteers who promised that it would be, that we'd have them ready to go on the day after we left the EU, were all seemingly happy, most notably David Davis recently, to admit, oh yeah, I got that wrong. But don't worry, we're going to totally get them done by the end of 2020. Now, Boris Johnson said he was going to run multiple negotiations at once. He'd run the US off at the same time as the EU, have those talks in tandem in order to play one off against the other. But then the United States told Johnson to sod off. Never mind, Australia and New Zealand will do. Oh, they've just told us to get knotted too. So the current official situation is that we're not conducting any trade talks at all. We'll be due to begin talks with the EU next month. And there are hopes of having a word or two with Japan. But that seems to be it at the moment. So Boris Johnson is not publicly, at any rate, holding any trade talks at all, except that it seems that his government are holding some trade talks. So during a hearing at a tribunal in London, instigated by the UK-based campaign group Global Justice Now, government lawyers had to reveal that UK negotiators are in fact holding trade talks with at least one country in complete secrecy. So much secrecy, in fact, that it isn't just the contents of the talks that has been withheld from the public, but even the identity of the country. We literally know nothing about it other than the fact that talks are taking place. Now, that is being challenged on the notion that trade talks are not just about tariffs and other matters that may not be of public interest. Although I would say that even those things do affect businesses and therefore their associated employees, it is still of public concern and should be a matter of public debate whilst the talks go on, as would happen in any other trade talks. But the argument is that trade deals can also result in changes to, say, food standards. For example, we know that the US wants us to lower our food standards in order to export produce to us not currently considered fit for human consumption. They also want us to tone down the detail in labelling to keep us a little bit ignorant of what we're buying and where it's from. After all, it's all right, most people saying, well, it's all right, we'll just let the poor people buy the chlorinated chicken. I don't care, I just won't buy that. But without adequate labelling, how do you know? Unless you kill the chicken and butcher it yourself, how are you going to know what you're buying? Other arguments put forward are that the terms of trade agreements can also affect a government's ability to protect public services. We know, for example, this is going to be impossible with the US trade deal. Makes it difficult to fight climate change, regulate and tax large corporations. So without these trade talks, or at least the main points being discussed in public, then we could end up with changes to the law that nobody voted for. And it also makes you wonder with whom the talks are. That they are secret absolutely means that it will result in unpopular changes to the law, which is why they want to get it agreed, rush it through Parliament before anyone can ask serious questions about it. If the talks were to take place publicly, remember talks take a long time, then political opposition could get the debate into the public arena long before the talks are concluded. Remember, until the talks are concluded, there's nothing to go through Parliament. The government wouldn't be able to rush it through then. But if the talks are kept secret, completely secret, the government can sign us up to anything, make all the Tory MPs blast it through the House within a week, like they did the withdrawal agreement, not giving much time to even read it, and no time at all to scrutinise it or to ask ministers questions about it, and it'll all be done and dusted and on the statute books before anybody knows what we're doing. And given that it will be an international treaty, that's going to make it less easy for us to dismantle it should our Parliament come to its senses, or should we get a Parliament that is already fairly sensible, I suppose. But who it's with is as interesting, because it opens up a potential can of worms here. So my first thought on this is, hang on, the United States has told us to sod off. President Trump said we'd be at the front of the queue for a trade deal, and he's not doing us a favour by saying that. The trade deal he's proposing is definitely good for America. It'd definitely be good for him. Now, could it be that although they're publicly saying that they're not going to discuss a trade deal with us, maybe privately they are, in order to sneak through all the conditions that they have? Was it actually a Tory ruse to get the US to pretend to tell us to go away in order to avoid public scrutiny? Did Boris Johnson say to President Trump, look, we're going to have these trade talks. If we have them publicly, there's going to be all sorts of opposition to this. People aren't really going to go for it. Why don't we just do it all secretly, agree the deal whenever it gets agreed, and I'll be able to rush it through Parliament in a week. So what you're going to have to do is to tell me to sod off. I can take it, don't you worry. That'd be worrying. That would be worrying. But it's not necessarily the United States. It could be the Gulf states, including Saudi Arabia. We know that Boris Johnson is keen to arrange a trade deal with them. What about China? Now, his award of the 5G contract to Huawei has definitely genuinely annoyed America. So the fact that America will be telling us to bugger off with the trade talks does make sense. Also, the fact that they're wanting to put all their efforts into the EU trade negotiations, again, makes sense. That's why, on balance, I'm probably happy to agree it's probably not with the US, but it could be. But what could it be with China? I mean, that Johnson has gone for this Huawei contract is a political sacrifice. He must have known it would have a political cost internationally. So has he done it in order to pursue a trade deal with China? And perhaps such a deal would certainly require us to lower our worker and environmental standards, which again could explain the need for secrecy. And this should be something that is being heavily reported on and speculated on. But it seems that the very groups who should be making a massive fuss about it, business lobby groups, NGOs, are not doing for fear of being excluded from government meetings. Because if that happened, if ministers refused to even talk to them privately, their influence drops to zero, and then these groups have no function. And you know, if they don't have any influence to lobby ministers, then they serve no purpose. And potentially for that reasons, they are being persuaded to keep quiet about it. And it's only going to be through independent groups such as Global Justice now, and hopefully opposition in Parliament, that are going to get us any information at all. I'm not even going to hold out any hope for the sorts of things that were happening last year, which is leaks from within the civil service. I'm not sure that's going to happen. Not only is Boris Johnson, Dominic Cummings cracking down on the civil service, but they're leading a government that is increasingly bent on centralising as well. So anyway, I hope you found the video interesting. If you did, don't forget to click the like button. And if you'd like to support the channel further, then please also click the Patreon link for details. And until next time, I'll see you later.